Hey folks, Brian, we got to play Elderath Saturday night, but I had a full day on Sunday, and today we had a charity golf tournament, so I'm finally getting back to the screen. All right, let's see. So we gathered up all the evil stuff from Lynn's husband's house. The manacles, the ring, the skull, the hand, and the dagger. But it was not really a library. It was just his house. Okay, so we ended up crossing paths with Lynn and folks, and that's how we found out, no, husband's house. Okay, so we tell Lynn about the secret study, and so we all start to head back there. But Raymond feels something happening back in the inner sanctum. He sees a pillar of light. Nobody else sees it. Nobody else feels anything. So he and some of the guards take back to the temple. The rest of us continue on to the secret study. Okay, we get back to the underground lab. Nothing weird's really happening, and Wes mentions that he, the husband, had an elf bound here on this table and was sucking his life force. But she says that her husband was an elf. Wes does a full stop. What? So maybe it was her husband on the table being sucked of his life force, which means then who was the undead creature thing? Oh man, now his wheels are spinning. Oh. Okay, let's take a look at the skull. Does Wes know anything about elf skulls versus human skulls? Well, yeah, they would be different. And he tries to make his biology, I think his biology roll, and no, he doesn't know. And Lynn can't tell doesn't know the difference either, but asks if there were any of the personal items, at which point Runt pulls the ring out. Now, we actually do a scene change at this point, but there's a point here where, okay, this apparently was her husband's ring. But does that really mean that the undead thing was her husband? And we'll get back into that later on. Well, anyway, Raymond, back in the temple. He does a number of detection type spells, nothing. Eventually, though, the avatar appears and tells him to bring the lost child before her. He relays that through some messaging spell capability within the temple to Wes. Wes then releases the party, and the priestess asks Lynn if she is hearing her, to which Lynn says yes. And so Lynn goes into this. Lynn takes off. We follow and trace. Okay, Raymond senses through the temple that some great evil is approaching. He's thinking it's the ring. In fact, most of us are thinking it's the ring. But Wes gets to a certain point where he can no longer push forward, and he's carrying the skull. So he takes a couple steps back, puts the skull down, steps forward, and he continues on. Goes, okay, you guys go. The skull is staying here, but we're not going to, leave it loose. So he's going to stay here to guard it. Krim stays with him. So the two of them are watching the skull while everybody else heads off back to the temple. Okay, the party gets to where the avatar. There's the inner sanctum where the avatar and Raymond are right now. The only people that actually go into the inner sanctum are the priestess and Lynn. Everybody else stays outside. The inner sanctum, right? Hjalmar, while he's at the temple, does a little prayer to Sylvanus about, Lynn having her curse removed, that kind of thing. Runt sees Heta, I believe, saying a prayer, so he does his own kind of prayer, but he doesn't know who to or what about. It's all discordant. It's kind of like prayer salad. So back to Krim and Wes outside the temple, and she says, the skull needs to be destroyed, and Wes agrees. But how, right? And she kind of taps her sword, and Wes goes, but it's actually will that actually destroy it? And says, well, maybe you should wait for wiser folks. Back inside. The avatar, which is normally, the avatar first appears is huge, right? But she shrinks. She doesn't really shrink, right? She decreases in size. And there's like a change, though, from where she was to being here. I don't know if it's a solidity thing, but there's some kind of perceptive difference. She says, "Come, child," to Lynn, and Raymond can tell that the curse is falling from Lynn. Lynn is in fact an elf. She has these tattoos with a water motif. It's almost kind of paganish in its aspect, so it's out of place with the modern culture. And she no longer has the trappings that she had before. She's wearing this draping, diaphanous gown that's kind of seaweed-like, maybe. And she says, "I'm going home." And a portal opens and she steps through. What we didn't realize at the time, but gets related to us later, is the fact that she, in fact, had died. And that was her spirit going on to the afterlife, and that her mortal stuff fell to the ground here. Okay, so the avatar is there, appears with the staff, right? And she says to Raymond that she, speaking of Lynn, has offered you a wondrous gift. You have purified the taint with which it has acquired. She then takes the staff and says, "Hold forth the ring," which he does, and she taps it. When she does so, the staff itself, blinding flash, destructive. Now, we learned that the ring adds 3 to your effective power. It multiplies your magic points by 3. It's got a plus 15 defense on it. It's got a subconscious stun relief for 3 rounds of duration. 3 rounds duration reduction. And can cast Awaken 3 times daily. Okay. And when the flash from the staff dissipates, the avatar is also gone, and the sanctum returns to normal. The Raymond asks the priestess what she had heard. She recalls everything that Raymond had understood. He's trying to perceive if there's some kind of difference in perception of things that occur. But then the priestess says, "Did you see something else?" And he says, "No, no, no." Okay, so it appears that Lynn has returned to the bosom of Lorath. She has become one with Lorath. Okay, so Raymond then steps out of the inner sanctum to where everybody else is and explains what happened in the inner sanctum. And everyone comes at this point out of the temple to gather around at the skull. Krim casts a spell on her sword, one of those paladin spells, and strikes it, destroying it. Now, is it destroyed? Yes, it is destroyed. Okay, so discussions then continue about Raymond's geash and the release of Lynn's husband. He was under a geash to release Lynn's husband, which we had all thought was the undead thing. He had gone bad. But he was released prior to us destroying the undead because we just finished destroying the undead, right? But he's already released. So Wes starting to put together that the elf on the table is actually Lynn's husband. And the skull is some kind of undead Forgian follower who trapped Lynn's husband. Interesting. Okay, so we return to the temple for the night. Next day, we go back to the lab. And Wes starts copying down the markings up on the wall behind the altar. It turns out that's actually a tapestry. So Wes takes it down and rolls it up, and he does it with, "Hey, there's a door there." So we open up this door, listen, check for traps, check to see it's locked, that kind of good stuff, which Wes actually did right on. And the door opens into another study. And this door is actually on the back side of a bookshelf. So a bookshelf, maybe it goes opens in, and you're in a bookshelf with the room. So there's the good study and the bad study. In the good study, there's a door, there's an exit from the study itself into a hallway where there are bedrooms, a kitchen, dining room. So this is the ground floor of a normal house. Inside this study, there are books in both Elvish and Common and Norse and Latin, and we're all searching for this kind of stuff. And Wes comes across a journal in Latin. It's an unfamiliar dialect, but it apparently is documenting someone's travel into the Valley of the Ancients, and that's something that Wes is thinking that they're going to have to eventually do sometime, maybe sooner than later, because it's in the Valley of the Ancients where we get the technology stuff, and there's some kind of connection there that he's being internally driven towards. This book appears near the desk with some other literature that seems to indicate it was commonly referred to within easy reach, right? There's other stuff there, some of the correspondence, various writings, pretty much undisturbed, um, like the lab, but unlike the second story. So some of the books here have that lizard man writing stuff in it, and there's some botanicals, pictures of plants and stuff, and a collection of various and sundry interests. So Wes kind of like, okay, this is the section I need to work on. Everybody else leave it alone. Okay, so back to the evil study. And Raymond finds a dispatch of persons who've been assassinated for looking into Forg's past, and it's written in Old Norse. Runton, looking around just for anything in random, finds what he thinks is a book, but he pulls it and goes, no, it's not a book. It's actually a coffer. A fake book, right? And he opens it up. Inside is this dagger, a stiletto. It says, he goes to Raymond, does this look evil to you? Raymond does his little magic detection stuff. No. It is very finely crafted. It has a small gem in the panel, but it doesn't seem to reflect like you would assume a gem would. It seems, dull. It's got a black leather grip. It's very, very slender. Surprisingly so slender that you'd be surprised that it actually can work right? Wes then asks to search the altar any hidden compartments. No, but you can tell on the top where the hand was that there is a shadow. And something that Wes hasn't asked yet is which way the hand was actually facing. So if the hand was facing towards the back, like the pile of dust was touching the altar when something happened, which the hand survived, but the rest of the body didn't. Yeah, not sure. I'm trying to figure that piece out. We'll talk about that later. Okay. The next day, Runt takes the coffer over to Hedda, and she asks if she can pick it up. And they decide to look for Wes to see if he might be able to do some detection stuff that Raymond can't. Wes doesn't have any detection stuff at all. But Runt says that he's the resident smart guy. So where is Wes? And they ask him, well, where's Krim? You find Krim, you'll find Wes. So Runt, they find Krim, and sure enough, there's Wes. Hey, Wes, what are you doing here? Hey, can you take a look at this? And while Wes is looking at it, he doesn't recognize it, but Krim looks over and says, whoa, that's a Morgantian blade. Where did you get that? Close it, close it. People start to freak. And when she said Morgantian blade, the rest of us got to make some more rolls, and Wes rolled a 10 on that one, so he knows what Morgantian blade actually is. So he drops it. So, a Morgantian blade, when you want to assassinate someone and not allow them to be resurrected, raised, revived, or questioned, use a Morganti blade. It prevents all that stuff from happening. You actually sever the connection, not with his body, but with the spirit in the hereafter. It actually turns out, in fact, you may find this later on, that the dagger traps the soul in the gem. Okay, and then Ron says, but Raymond said it wasn't evil. What if we use this against a Forg person, right? Trap a Forg ally inside it instead of letting that person live forever, But Krim say, no, we need to destroy this. Well, let's see what Raymond has to say about that. So Raymond, using the temple spell list Dark Lore, casts Dark Lore 3. Which tells it a whole bunch of stuff about it, right? Okay, it is an object of darkness. It is an object of darkness. It was made during the war to overthrow Forg. It was made in Forg's fortress. It was created by one of Forg's flunkies. It was made to destroy the soul of the person it's used to kill. It is an assassin's tool that is used to infiltrate heavily protected magic places. It has non-detect, non-presence, misfeel kind, misfeel power as in POW, and the gem is a soul trapping gem. And the whole thing is made of Yogg. Now those of us who have played Roll Masters Middle Earth. Not necessarily MERP, but it ties into that. You've got the various level, like Mithros +3, Lane is +4, and Eog is like +6 or something. You know, it's like true steel, whereas Mithros true silver. It's yeah, really, really tough stuff. Okay, so anything else we want to do while we're here? Well, yeah, Wes still wants to use the gates to go to the caves so we can do a recon there and see what's actually happening. So we do. We go to the caves. We see two sets of footprints leaving the altar, going through the chapel and on up the stairs. Two sets of footprints. One pair is smaller, about like size 5, and the other one's larger, about size 9. It was noted that while Runt did succeed in his role, he did not discern the prints. It was somebody rolled like an odd one, if I remember right. Okay, so we sneak up to the entrance, listen for guards, nothing. We try to follow the footprints, but we keep not making our rolls. I think we made one set of rolls afterwards, so we know they're kind of going towards the entrance. We also assume that's where they're going. So we follow the pathway around through the doors into the main hallway. Exit cavern K. There are we hear guards out front, so we stop and listen. And Raymond says, "Why don't we use Emerald?" She took offense at that. But yeah, okay, Emerald, go ahead and go recon out there. You know, take a look. How many campfires? How many tents? You know, see what you can see and come back. So she goes back. Okay, many campfires, many tents, many horses, one giant, orcs, and there's like a large pavilion. It's not like the others. There's also a nest for a lesser drake. The drake that we had seen before at the tower, at the keep, she had seen as well. So it's not that drake. It's a lesser drake than that, even though that is a lesser drake as well. Okay, so we got our little recon. We go back to the temple. Runt decides to stay at the temple with Hedda, doing their temple stuff. Raymond and Hjalmar stay in Hamlet. Wes and Krim go to Telgar, where Wes makes a report on this whole getting situation in the caves. We can get the army there. They've got from Hamlet to a waypoint to the caves, and this is all we saw there as well. Also, the boat has a crew that is getting skilled, and they've been doing sea trials. Of course, everyone wants to be on the crew of this ship, and we do downtime. So we get downtime for rolling our check marks, and then a week of training, so that some people have time to actually do something, right? Since Wes is in Telgar by himself, he goes ahead and gives pushes to the Seneschal. Hey, go ahead. Let's use the ship. Make use of it. Make it keep its pay. Kind of keep its pay. Pay for its keep. There we go. So they start making plans for doing that, right? Their plan, not just Seneschal, but Lane Tammer, everybody in the capital, the whole castle thing, right, is to replace one of the normal trading ships with this ship. And Raymond in Hamlet gets a letter from Telgar, from the bishop, about his predecessors at Hamlet were dealing with Minoc issues coming out of the swamp. So he's being charged with the same mission. Find out what's going on, see what happened. Put a stop to it if you can. That kind of stuff, right? All the normal day-to-day duties inside Hamlet can be done by his subordinates. And the bishop believes there is a spy in Hamlet. Of course, we all know that there is, in fact, a spy in Hamlet because the spy's been killing people and other stuff. And the letter specifically says to consult with Rufus and Burns on activities in the larger area to the east. And we all know that Burns was replaced with a bad guy and is dead. The bad guy was killed. There was a comment that GM made about Krim not being particularly happy about leaving Telgar because her mission is to take care of the ship, keep it safe. Raymond meets with Rufus and Burns and discuss local happenings, and nobody seems to have any Any issues or concerns of things going on? And at this point during the game, things started to settle down. It's getting late, so we're thinking about calling it a night. So I cut off the recording. So the rest of the stuff isn't recorded. By the way, there is the live plays in the description. But we make our way. Wes makes his way to Hamlet. Every Hamlet then goes to the underwater temple to get Runt, so we can then make plans on going into the moat house and trying to figure what's going on. We even start talking about killing the lobstrosity again. So while this is going on, Wes is hanging out at the inn, and in walks this farmer that Wes knows had died during the skeleton attack on Hamlet, because at one point the party was on the east side of Hamlet protecting homesteads out there, and there was this farmer lived in one of those homesteads, and he was killed right in front of Wes's eyes. And so Wes is looking at him funny, and he's looking at Wes kind of, what's up, my lord, that kind of stuff. And do you remember any sort of attack by skeletons? No, nothing like that's happened. But then, maybe I missed it, that kind of thing, right? And during that, at some point, Thurmond shows up and says, something is wrong. I've met people that I know are dead. We all go, yeah, so have we. So events that he knows that have happened have not happened here. And Wes meant to get with Gundygoot or somebody else. Hey, do you remember, an undead army coming out of the swamps and attacking? The Howler coming by, Lady Tamara and all her knights coming over. Oh, he did mention the whole Sir Michael and the Paladin show. He goes, oh, you mean one of those tournament things? Yes, my lord, of course, we have those here on occasion. No, that's not what he meant. But anyway, Raymond asks Thurman if he has any theories. It's not. Whatever has happened, it is something that we with Thurman have in common. And so what's uncommon about us compared to everybody else? We're the only ones who went through the gates together. I went through the gate that ended up in the future Elderath with the rifles, or the muskets maybe? Well, the gunpowder weapons, the cannons and stuff, right? And the elves sent us back to this Elderath, which is apparently not the right Elderath. We're still in the wrong one. But still, we got the boat, the flying ship. But we still have this connection with the underwater temple, which is the same, and there's a little confusion going on. So what to do? Runt brings up the fact that, hey, in the moat house, there's that fairy mound. Hey, Thurman, do you know how to use a fairy mound? He goes, well, is it a fairy mound or is it a gate? Well, it did have an arch on it. Yeah, maybe it is a gate. But Thurman is thinking that we need to go to the Valley of Ancients. That Forg knew about the Infinite Corridor and searched in the Valley of the Ancients for things about the Infinite Corridor. But then he suddenly stopped his searchings and returned to his fortress. And it was soon after that he was defeated in the Turning Lands. It's possible that his fortress has a record of his discoveries about the Infinite Corridor, which may be of assistance in getting us back to where we came from. And we could just fly over with our ship, right? But then we'd have to worry about the dragons. An alternate method would be to go to the Valley of the Ancients itself, find where Forg had been excavated, and see if we can't find what he did. That's kind of where we ended the session with, okay, what do we do next? We're in the wrong place again. Happy gaming.